Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership.
Good afternoon, Christeen. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a Tuesday. I'm surviving. I have a short week. So I'm just kind of cruising along. How are you?
I'm good. It's Tuesday here too. Sunny afternoon. Finally, the rain has stopped. It has been a chilly, wet spring after a dry fall last year. So we're cruising. Spring is spring this year. Last year was like hot and dry, and this year it's wet and chilly. So we're up for it. My team is excited. We're moving along. Today's show is going to be a little bit different. Instead of educationally focused, we're going to be having a discussion. And I know many of our listeners are learners and readers or podcast listeners and book listeners. They love Audible. And Christeen is a pretty avid book reader and listener. And so we're going to be talking about some books that we've been reading and how we implement them into our businesses and into our lives.
Yeah, I do love to read. I go through phases, I feel like. And I can't say I'm a reader. I always feel guilty when I'm like, oh yeah, I read this book. Because the truth is I don't have the attention span to read something. Like I'm horrible at reading instructions. I'm like, I don't need to read those. I can figure this out. You send me an email that's too long. I get through about 2 lines and then I'm like, oh, this is so much. So I love to listen to books. I love to listen to podcasts. So I do digest a lot of content through listening because I always have to be doing something when I'm listening to a book. So maybe just when I'm reading, I can't multitask and that goes against who I am. So I have to be doing more than one thing.
Yes. I like to buy the book and get the book on Audible. I like to touch the book and read it because sometimes I have to read things multiple times. But I also, if the author has done the book, I like to listen to it. Yeah. But sometimes the author will just crush me to sleep. They would just, it will just they are so boring. But some authors are awesome to listen to, and I just enjoy them. Mike Michalowicz is very funny. If you listen to his books, he really reads a good book. But some other authors are just, it's a challenge. They just don't animate their books, and they're not great storytellers. They're just reading the book. So it depends on who's doing the book. So sometimes it's better if somebody else reads the books for these authors. So I like to do both. But yeah. So what books are you going to talk about today, Christeen?
I have a couple. Like I said, I digest a lot of content. I go through phases of digesting content. So I've read a couple good ones lately. One of them is Let Them by Mel Robbins, which was referred to me by my best friend, which is kind of funny because she's the only person I know on this planet that reads more than I do. But she reads everything but business books, so she's very much about the story and the journey. And, I read a lot of business books. She never reads business books. So it's funny that or self-help books. It's funny she sent this to me because she was like, you need to read this book. And I know it's weird because it is a, kind of mindset self-help type of book. But she's like, you really need to read this. So I really enjoyed it. It was very insightful. There's a lot of things I think, and I think I shared this with you, Steve. I was like, we know a lot of these things because of what we've read or studied before, but there's different perspectives and ways that she said things or even shared some new things that kind of put a twist on what you might already know.
Yes. And she wrote a couple other books, the 5-Second Rule book.
Mm-hmm.
And she's pretty prolific in her writing. She has a good podcast. And that just let them book. Someone in my office is reading it and listening to it at the same time. And again, that was the advice, to get the book and to listen to it, because Mel Robbins is really animated the way she reads, and she's like all about helping people. Her story is amazing, I think, and I'm not going to get all the details right, but the essence was like her and her husband were broke, down and out, like they hit rock bottom, and she had to come back and fight back. And now she's super successful and well known. It helps a lot of people. I don't know. She suffered from depression or
Mm-hmm.
just really, really went through it and had to make a great comeback and found her way out of it. And she shares the tools and methods that she used and her challenges to get her life back, really, and get back on her feet and her relationships and find her way back in the world, and to be really a thought leader and inspirational to thousands and thousands of people through her writing and through her speaking. So
Yeah.
that's a great share.
Yeah. And some of the things that she shared in this book, she talks about boundaries. This is one of the things. And I feel like in business and as entrepreneurs, and even with some of our team members, just in life, like boundaries is a really tough thing to understand and to tackle. It's another one of those topics that I don't think was really talked about growing up, and isn't even, I think, talked about enough even in today's generations as boundaries. I know as tough as I feel like I have been in my life, when I really started diving into boundary work, I was like, oh, my boundaries are so fluid. Like I'm not, I don't hold my ground in certain areas as much as I should have. And I was carrying the weight, but I wasn't holding my ground in the space that I really needed. And I was kind of making an exception for myself. So that's something I'd been working on for years. But how she talks about boundaries in this book, I think is really helpful. It's an easy way to understand. And she helps you understand how to set these healthy boundaries while being empathetic and understanding to others. So that way you don't feel like a jerk, or you don't feel like, oh, because I'm going to have boundaries, I'm such a jerk, or, so you feel like you have a right to the boundaries that you're setting. So I love the work that she did on really explaining boundaries and how these boundaries are healthy and what they do provide you. So I think as business owners and leaders, boundaries is a really important and powerful concept to understand.
Yeah, I love boundaries. I love when boundaries are clear, and I can never, ever have a conversation without talking about Clifton's strengths, because the number one rule for engagement is clear expectations, right? And I think boundaries is another word for clear expectations. Like, what are the boundaries or expectations in this relationship or this experience or this job or this, whether it's between a wife and a husband or a son and a mother or a daughter or a boss and or a team member or a teammate. What's the boundaries? What's the expectations? And I think that the clearer those expectations or the boundaries, the healthier the relationship, because then we know what we're supposed to bring and what they're bringing, and everybody knows what they can contribute or what they're supposed to be contributing. So I like that. So what was like your takeaway, your surprise takeaway from that?
There's two things that I learned from the book that I think was just so well said. So one of the things was about enabling others. Right. And we can do this with the best of intentions. And I think, if we care for someone, especially like our children, our spouse, or even people on our team, we can enable them without even knowing it. And the message that she shared that I thought was so powerful and just so eye-opening is when we enable others, we are telling them, I don't believe you are smart enough, strong enough, or capable enough to do it yourself.
Wow.
And that hit home for me because I was like, oh, I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're not smart enough, strong enough, or capable themselves to do this. And I hadn't realized, like, if I were to step in, that's the message I'm sending. And, I'm taking away like their power or their time for growth. And that was not my intention at all. So I loved that perspective. And it was very powerful just to kind of get that, look at it from that place and just simplify it to that degree.
Right. So a little codependency there, like, because I'm familiar with codependency, thinking I'm helping people, but really it's me filling up my cup of like, look how helpful I can be. But it's really creating this codependency, and it's really sending that message of, I don't believe that you're capable. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I don't believe in you.
I don't believe in you.
Yep.
Interesting.
So that was deep for me. I was like, oh, now my kids are going to have to go therapy forever.
Right. Right. And employees and other people, right? Just amazing, right? Interesting.
Yeah.
So my book is called The Four Agreements, written by Miguel Ruiz. And basically, it's really a simple book. It's only 123 pages, but it just basically gives you like 4 guidelines in life. And one is basically be impeccable with your words. And so basically, it's like what we say has so much weight in many different ways. So, like, if you insult someone, you can say you're sorry, but like it leaves a scar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, and we've talked about this before, like be responsible for the energy you bring into a room or into a space, and be responsible for the words that you show up with that energy. And also like your integrity, when you say you're going to do something, do it. And also like the silence as a word, like silence is so critical in communication, and allowing room in communication when you're talking and listening to that. So your words, be impeccable with your words, just be careful, be choosy, and be responsible for what you're saying and how you're responding, and how you listen and what you're saying back to people. So that's the first one. And the second one is interesting because I deal with this all the time coaching in Clifton Strengths, is don't take anything personal. And people who have that high empathy strength and high responsibility, that's a big challenge with them. And it's interesting how, don't take anything personally. So, how much we think people are thinking about us, and people are not. And how much we hear when people say things about how we can feel disrespected or not respected, and it has so little to do with us. Like people are not thinking about us so much. And a lot of it is we're so self-focused, and we're missing what the person is really saying or needing from us when we're so focused on taking things personally. We're just missing about 75% of the conversation and relationships.
Yeah, I feel like communication in general is very challenging for most people. And I think that was hard for me to really understand, because growing up, I probably drove my parents crazy. and I realize this more now with my youngest, is he does not shut up. Like, this kid will talk and talk and talk and talk. And I remember, when he started doing this, I was like, oh my gosh, I used to do this as a kid. I would drive my parents bananas because I wouldn't shut up. And so I was just always communicating and always talking. And so some of us can be really good at communicating. We can be really good at talking. But then that listening part, or what we're saying, can be very challenging. So that was something that, as I got older, had to really mature to where I was like, oh, what am I saying? And how is it impacting others? Because it's so easy to just verbally vomit your feelings or your frustration in the moment. And then, am I really listening to this other person, or am I gearing up for what I'm going to say next? And I remember doing that, in like my early 20s, to where a conversation, especially if it was heated, could be more like a competition, to where I was like, no matter what you throw at me with words, like, I'm just going to tie you up with mine. So yeah, it's challenging. Communication in general can be very challenging for people.
Yes. So that not taking things personally is, if we can get there and like really listen to what the person is saying or what they're doing, really, like, let's say somebody cuts you off in traffic, right? And you're like, oh, that guy cut me off. In reality is, they're either late for work, they're not paying attention, they're distracted, something else is going on. It literally had nothing to do with us.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're taking it personally, we get mad at the person, you cut the person off, maybe you pass and then you brake check them. No, I don't do that. But I've seen people do that. And it literally had nothing to do with us or that other person. Something else was going on. Or somebody's having a bad day and they say something or do something and we get hurt or we get insulted, and it literally had nothing to do with us. They're bringing the energy in that. And that's why it goes back to the first agreement, which is be impeccable with your words, right? Because what we say really impacts the people around us. So not taking things personally and realizing that there's so much going around us. Like, everyone brings some battle that they're fighting to us or around us. So, and they're just sharing that with us. And then the third one, which is really interesting and goes back to the choice map, right? And the work we do around mindset is, don't make assumptions. Making assumptions can just be so costly. And you could have a whole podcast on making assumptions and the cost of it, like relationships, sales. I worked with a sales team in Ohio, and they assumptioned their leads to death before they left the sales room.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just brutal to watch. I mean, they would be like, oh, you got a call today, Yellow House. Nobody from Yellow Houses ever buys from me. Yep. Nope. Yellow Houses suck. They just, nope, they will not buy from you. And I was like, oh, time out. We don't know that to be true. And they're like, yes, I had 2 calls last week, both sell Yellow Houses, and neither one of them bought. And so the assumptions are so powerful if we're going to go through that without being curious, right? And that's why mindset, choice map work is so powerful. So this book really just fed into and reinforced all the work that I've been doing over the past years. Like, what's true, right? Ask myself, what's true? What's best to do now? Mm-hmm. What do I want? What am I feeling? What are they feeling? What do they want? So this book really just helped to reinforce that stuff. It just slow down, ask the real questions, and also kind of like the monkey mind. Our friend John Bates shared that with us. If you've never heard of the monkey mind, so there's I think it's Buddhist. There's a whole bunch of different names, but the Buddhists call it the monkey mind. It's that like inner child that yells at you, you're no good. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. Or, just like that negative speaking, or, they're so disrespectful, cut them back off. And you're like, no, I can't do that. I'll be polite. I'll be kind. They weren't kind to you. So, and then you want to put that monkey mind, strap it in the back seat and duct tape its mouth. So the monkey mind will make assumptions for us and maybe create a little tension and stress in our minds and bodies. And it's interesting because you can feel the monkey mind in your body.
Yeah.
That tension in your chest or in your neck and your back. If you listen to it, it can really drive relationships apart.
Something that helped me, and this was through our the work that we did with the Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, and the Choice Map was, and it was just one little class that we took, and it brought this up, and I'm like, oh, I love that. And it was, there's assumptions, there's opinions, and there's facts. And it's very easy. It was something that I started practicing in a conversation to where I was like, okay, that's an assumption. That's a fact. Well, that's an opinion. And it just really kind of helped me sort through anything that I was kind of getting emotionally charged about. If I was having a conversation with somebody, I could easily label what's a fact, and the rest is just either an opinion or an assumption. And then I could address the facts. And, if that didn't fix it, then I could address, if there was assumptions or opinions. But it just helped me get to the root of, the issue quicker if there was some sort of upset or conflict, or if somebody was saying something in a conversation, and this has happened before, where you're talking about, it's not about you, right? And I'd be like, oh my gosh, how rude. Like, they know I do this for a living, or this is something I'm very passionate about. And it felt like a personal stab at me. And they were just completely unaware of what they were talking about. And they didn't hold as much weight in that topic as I did. So it was, once I realized that, I was like, okay, whatever. They're just yapping their jaws. Like, doesn't mean anything. We're not having a serious conversation. So it was a lot easier to kind of sort through challenging conversations or things that were offensive, just by being able to identify the type of communication or statement that they were making.
Yeah, right. Fact, opinion, assumption, right? Mm-hmm. Taking the time, slowing down, what's true, what do I want, what are they thinking, what do they want, what's best to do now, what's possible, right? Mm-hmm. What's an opinion, and sometimes opinions are just like the thought with the information they have.
Yeah.
And with the in the moment from their perspective. Yeah. So it creates a lot of energy. So, it's so funny when you talk about logic or facts, there's so much you can, even though it's a fact, like 4, it's a number, just a number. But when you start talking numbers, how much, because we coach around finances, how much energy and emotion there can be around numbers, right? Mm-hmm. There's no crying in accounting. But when you're talking about finances, it can get really emotional. And, people will go over numbers and they're like, is that good or bad? I'm like, well, there's actually no good or bad numbers. That is just what the answer is. We're determining it, right? Whether it's good or bad, but it's just information right now. So let's just take it as information. Now we'll go forward from there. Because people feel so judged about their numbers and so judged about, whether they're doing good or bad, because their whole life, right? You start out at mom and dad and she's a good boy. He's a good boy. Look at the good baby. Right. And then you go to school and did you get a good grade or did you do good in school? And, so even now people want to know, am I doing good or am I doing bad? And even in Clifton Strengths, people are so like, oh, are those strengths good? Can I be a good leader or a good manager with that? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. As long as you're working in your strengths and you're honoring those, you can do whatever you want. It was very interesting. I was on a coaching call last week, and this person, one of my favorite things is to plan trips, right? The flights, the car, the activity, the restaurants. And this person had almost the exact opposite strengths that I had. And she loved to do the same thing. Her friends did the same thing. They handed everything over to her. So you plan everything and we'll show up, just like kind of my groups do with me. And so we accomplished the same exact things, but we had absolutely different strengths. So you can accomplish the same things with completely different strengths. So that just shows that there's no like, can I achieve this with different strengths? Absolutely. So there's no good or bad, but we assign so much assumption or opinion to things based on whatever perception that we bring into it.
Yeah.
So the fourth agreement is always do your best. And this is one of those things that aligned with me right away when I read this, because it's interesting. In my Clifton Strength, even though I did sports my whole life, business, I don't have competition in my top 10. I think it's like 26 for me, because I always believed, and I think my parents taught me this. You just always do your best. You show up, you go to every practice, you give 100% at every practice. You do everything you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. And you play fair, you play by the rules. And if you win, you win. If you lost, you lost. And then that's what it is. So as long as you're always doing your best and you get up tomorrow and you try again, that's what the game is. It's the infinite game, right? Mm-hmm. And so this really aligned with me. But this is more than just about like sports and business. It was really like about the first three agreements, like choosing your words, not making the assumptions, and not taking things personally, like doing these first three all the time, doing your best with those all the time. So being intentional from even before you, I was gonna say from the moment you wake up, even the night before, like being intentional, even the day before, planning to be intentional, then being intentional that day. And also, but giving yourself space to slip up and refocusing and then moving forward again, and knowing that there's going to be times that you're going to need to refocus and readjust. And also letting other people around you and people who love you and support you know what you're doing. So they can support you around in this. So you're not just alone, an island trying to be the best version of you, letting people know that, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I really want your support around this. So you can help me be the best version of myself. So it's a very interesting book, super easy read. I've read it 2 or 3 times, and each time I read it, it kind of is a little bit different of a book. So, as you mature and grow, I think it changes a little bit.
Yeah, that's another reason why I have a habit of reading multiple books at one time. I actually enjoy reading multiple books at one time, because while I'm reading one, it's influencing how I'm perceiving the other and vice versa. So they'll somehow through the process go hand in hand to where I see things from a different perspective. So I try not to read the same, kind of topic focus on a book, the same ones. But I love to read 2 different books at the same time, just because in my brain, it just expands my way of thinking, and I'm getting kind of different information about it. So there's very few books I'll reread. I have had some that I'll go back and listen to again, but I don't have a ton of them. I'd probably say that some of my favorites, and I think just because the way that the author reads the book, is Malcolm Gladwell books. Yeah. The way he tells stories and what he brings into his audiobooks, like it's I could listen to that man all day. Like just the way he tells stories and just his voice and the way that he presents the information. It's just like food for my brain, the way that I think. So
he's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
He really is. And about doing your best, it's very interesting because what they talk about is, and I think, the way Malcolm Gladwell tells stories is some of the people in his stories, they showed up and did their best in those stories, and they might not have the perfect situations, in the David Goliath and some of the other stories. And that's what they're saying, do your best. Because sometimes, doing your best is when you're sick and you still have to show up, or when you don't feel your best, or maybe you've had a really tough day, but you have to show up as, and do your best as tired, or do your best when you're not your best. And that's what it is. You can't always wait and feel 100%. And that's really, you have to do your best when you're 70%, at 80%, at 90%. And, you just always have to show up the best you can and live with that, and just realize you're never going to be 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But, Malcolm Gladwell, he tells some great stories. The David and Goliath, is one of my favorite stories. And then also the spaghetti story, the perfect spaghetti sauce. And they found out they had industrial psychologists there, and they did all that. And there's no perfect spaghetti sauce, right? It depends on who you ask. And I thought that was a great way to show, just like, you can't satisfy all the people. You'll spend your whole life trying to do that. You have to find your audience and really dial into a space or into a niche and own that.
Yeah, he writes several. David and Goliath was actually the last one that I listened to. The one before that was The Revenge of the Tipping Point, which is his second book from the original, The Tipping Point. And he comes back and he talks about some phenomenal connections and like how they influence each other, which I thought was very interesting. And one of the other things that he talks about is kind of like the timing of things. And depending on like the timing and the audience is how it's going to be received or perceived. So that was just really interesting. And it was more around like the success of like an idea, or it could be a business, it could be anything. It really depends on the environment that it's presented in, and then the ideas around like when it's introduced, like what's happening, what are people experiencing, what are their thoughts, so that can influence things. So that was just a very interesting kind of book to read, to see, kind of like it influencing points that happen in time and with situations and in different, societies, like different cultures. And then at the same time, what are their similarities as well? So it's a intellectual journey he brings you on, but it's not too heavy, to understand and connect some of the points.
Yeah, he definitely keeps it entertaining.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause so I'm mostly read business books, but his books are more entertaining. So he's about as far out away as I go from business books. That's yeah. And this, I mean, this is more self-improvement, the 4 agreements. So, but Malcolm Gladwell is about as far out from business books as I go. My wife is always trying to get me to read novels. I've read like The Godfather, those couple of those types of style books, but yeah, I don't go too far away from business books and self-improvement books, and maybe some Mario Spuzo books or whatever, the Godfather style books. But yeah, otherwise it's that style books, definitely. Yeah. So one of the other challenges, though, I have a couple of friends who read a lot of books, and they're always like, you want to be careful with the flavor of the day, though, in reading books, and always be trying new things in your business, so be careful with that. Because they're always like this month and their team's like, oh no, another book.
Yeah. The implementation part.
Yeah.
I think that as entrepreneurs, there's this learning journey we can go on. And part of it is being responsible with what we are learning and knowing, is it the right time? Because as much as we want to already be there or have this problem solved, there could be things that need to happen before that. And I mean, that's something that, I've realized as well, to where I'm like, oh, we can do this, or we can do that. We could do this. You may be ready, but is your team ready? And then if your team isn't ready, are you really ready? Are there other things, that need to change, or that they need to learn in order to support the implementation of something?
Yeah. And this is kind of where my 1,000-day theory comes in. So I'm going to read something and I want to implement it into my company, from the first time I hear of it to where it's like fully implemented, it's going to take about 1,000 days or 3 years. So how that works is I'll hear about it, then I'll read it, and then I will start talking about it to my friends, Christeen, some of my other friends, get their input. Have they heard about it? What do they think about it? Have they seen anybody implement it? I'll look for stuff on YouTube. Might reread the book. Then I'll start putting it in front of my team a little bit here and there, get feedback. What do you think we could use? And then I'll start rolling it out here and there, and then see how it can be implemented on my team. I'll never just fully roll it out, even profit first. I did the 1% profit allocation first. That's what we did first. And then we started with the other percentages. Then we started to open up the other accounts, but we did 1% for, I think, a quarter. I was like, okay, we can do 1% for a quarter. Then we did 3% profit. And then we started with the other accounts. And it was a full year before we had all the other accounts. But it was probably 3 years before we had everything fully implemented and running on all cylinders, until we had a real coach, really. But that's why I think coaching is important for that type of thing. But that's a real proven system. And there's coaches for that. But some of these other concepts, if you're not working with people, it can be daunting. And some of the other systems, like the EOS, that is, if you're reading those types of books, those you need coaches, and they're really for bigger businesses, like multi-million-dollar businesses, because you need 5 or 6 different positions just to run that system. So
yeah, a lot of small businesses they fall in the, I would say, gaps in the EOS, but really what I'm saying is, like, every the business owner is put into every role, and
Yeah.
that's just not possible. It's,
No.
not there yet. So
No.
yeah.
Yeah. That's just too much. That's just too much. And like the E-Myth, that's a great book, one of my favorite books. But to try to systemize a small business where you're going to turn it into a franchise, most people never do any of the E-Myth. That's why, doing something to systemize your business, like getting a payroll service, systemizing your cash flow using Profit First, systemizing your hiring, systemizing your onboarding, small things like that is really the first steps before you try to systemize it to make it franchisable. Systemizing the day-to-day stuff or the week-to-week stuff like payroll and hiring and onboarding and cash flow management, that is really like the first steps. Otherwise, the other stuff can be so big we don't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like regardless with all the stuff we try to do in business, and I've said this before, it's not about the numbers, right? It's not like you can't just be successful with the numbers. You can't just fix the numbers and be like, oh, I'm going to have a phenomenal business, right? There's other things that come into play. There's business acumen, and then there's mindset. So it's not just a one lane type of solution. When you're running a business and you're an entrepreneur, there's different things that we have to look at. Business acumen is important. That's going to get you to really understanding your numbers and how you can make decisions around numbers. But then there's that emotional intelligence side and that mindset side that really, I feel like it elevates everything else above and beyond, and can be a really big game changer. So I think all of these combined, like when you're reading books or, business books or content, that diversity of the business acumen, the how to solve the problems, and then even some mindset content is really good, because that's going to change how you go about things, or even maybe how successful you are in implementing these changes in your business.
Yeah. Mindset is huge. I would agree 100%. So two things that really, I would say, changed my trajectory in business was mindset, the mindset work, getting the mindset coaching, and the strengths, because the books are helpful and everything, but if my mindset is not in the right space, I can't. It's like I have chains, or I can't, blinders on. I can't see. I can't think. I can't operate. And then if I'm trying to do somebody else's book or someone else's advice and not working from my strengths, it's just like walking around with like two ill-fitting shoes on and trying to write in my opposite hand all day, right? It never works. It doesn't feel right. It takes so long. So with the right mindset and operating from my own strengths, everything's fluid. It feels wonderful. I have energy. People understand what I'm saying. And that's when my business grew. That's when my leadership grew. That's when people got me. I didn't have to like look in a book. Did I do the right step? Did I say the right thing? Is that a level 10 meeting? Oh, did I skip the wrong thing? Nope. None of that. Nope. It was just me being me, real as can be. People got it.
Yeah.
Right away. So that, I think the mindset and the strengths are like critical to really being authentic and really growing a business that people can see and feel.
Yeah, it definitely, that was a game changer for me as well, as when I started looking into, the mindset work, and, how to properly communicate to the team, because, if you know me, my filter is fantastic. It's really not. It's, I'm very straightforward in how I say things, but I have the best intentions. So I really had to kind of improve my delivery on my communication as a leader. Though I had the best intentions, I did not deliver what I was thinking, feeling, and wanting in the best way. I was just, a little bit too direct, and I needed to kind of fluff it up a little bit for certain people. So with that mindset, and then also that, some personal development and the strengths, it really helped me get that dialed in and understand. I know now when I'm not delivering something well. I'm completely aware of it. As before, I would say something to someone and I'd be like, what is their problem? All, all I did was hold them accountable and not be aware of, well, how was that received? Or how did that make them feel? Or, did I do that properly? So I had to kind of reel myself in, do a little bit of development and even practice and, then deliver it in a different way. And that helped a lot and raise my awareness. Like I said, now I know when I don't deliver something well to someone. I'm like, ooh, that totally came out wrong. And I could pull it back real quickly and say, like, oh, this is what I meant to. Let me rephrase that because obviously I didn't, polish that enough, like right out from my brain through my mouth, and take accountability for how it's delivered instantly versus having to come back later. Because that coming back later, and let me tell you, because I've done this, to apologize for the way something was said or how you said it is so painful to have to come back and be like, okay, I was a total jerk when I said it that way, or I didn't mean it that way. And because I guarantee if it was delivered not in the best way, and then you come back later, somewhere in between the delivery and the coming back later, you probably also justified how it was said or the way that you said it.
Yeah.
So,
But we're business owners, we're running businesses. We have so much passion and heart that sometimes it comes out as aggression or anger, or it just comes out. It's, it doesn't sound good. It's not the best versions of ourselves. And so sometimes it's hard to kind of repackage that in a warm, fuzzy, hello, friendly tone.
right.
So yeah, it definitely does. But it's better for us, and it's better for our team. It's better for our families, and our vendors if we can communicate in a way that we don't have to go back and apologize and mend the fences, and we can actually move much faster that way. People want to work with us more frequently. We don't have to, back up and fix the flat tire. We can keep moving forward faster with that really good communication. And people want to be held accountable, and we can also find ways to do that without that, having to go back and fix things. So it's like right up front, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable. This is how it looks. This is what it's going to sound like. And you can expect this. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So I think the book that you shared, Steve, it really could help support around how things are communicated. How are you communicating? Like raising that awareness around communication, and the let them, that one. It just really helps us, I think, understand what we need and what others need in any type of relationship, whether it's personal, professional, or she even has a chapter in there, which I love how she delivers it on, relationships. And I think that that's a challenge for a lot of people, is having healthy relationships. And we ourselves have to have healthy mindset, boundaries, behaviors in order to have a healthy and successful relationship, in life. And so I love the way that she unpacks that. So it's just a lot of, interestingly enough, it is about business, but it's about how we show up in business.
Healthy relationships are really critical. Two things I've been working on for relationships in the past 3 weeks. So, and I got this from someone else, but talk to people like you're already friends, like you're good friends. And it brings, like, and you're glad to see them. So one is, and it takes a little practice, it brings energy right away. And it really works. So, like, you're happy to see people, and even like talking to the camera, like you're really glad to see the camera, like they're a friend when you're making the videos, and it brings an energy, and it brings mirror neurons to people. So I've been doing that. And then the other thing is no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've shared many times, I've really struggled in relationships where I've had expectations on people that I never shared with them. So really not bringing expectations to relationships, so freeing, and it's way healthier. It's the assumptions. Expectations are another word for assumptions, I'm thinking. So showing up without the assumptions or expectations, and talking to people like you're already good friends. And it's interesting how quickly I can build rapport with people talking to them like that. And they will move into my space, which I'm not 100% comfortable with. So I kind of like choose when I'm going to do that. But it's so interesting. Try it, and how I already build rapport quickly, but how much faster you can build rapport talking to people like that. It is, it's all based on mirror neurons. So it's not logical, it's biological. It's an interesting technique. So that is what someone shared with me, and I have tried it, and it seems to be effective. Now, I also have woo in my top 5, winning others over. So I think my woo skills just, are a magnet for that. So it definitely played into my already existing strengths. So if you are in sales or you're trying to build a rapport with someone, I would try that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not for me, that would not be something that I would just invite to the table, because I love my boundaries and my space, and I don't always want to invite everybody in. So I'm kind of a slow approach, or not at all, which
I
I've been
lived
good
like that
with.
for years, arm length. I mean, our friend John Bates says, live in the listening of those who love you. And my brother, who I'm very close to, and my daughter, said, you should think about talking to a therapist or getting some therapy, because you live your life keeping everybody at arm's length. You use sarcasm and comedy to keep everybody at arm's length, which I have since worked on. But letting people closer and having more, closer relationships instead of using sarcasm, which I got rid of the sarcasm. I still will use humor once in a while. But I understand, Christine. I remember the first time that you're like, oh, can I join you for breakfast? I'm like, is she sitting down with me?
Steve was very uncomfortable. I didn't give him a choice, though. So I pick and choose, the people that that I want to connect with, and my circle has grown. It really has in the past several
Yes,
years.
you've expanded your circle tremendously.
Yeah.
Your relator strength is expanding.
Yeah, I think it's left the room. But it's I can people so much, and I could only people with not with certain people, with certain energies I connect easier with. So it depends on my energy level, how capable I am in that moment of connecting, with people. I'm not like, I don't want to see anybody, like, get out of here. But I am particular about the people that, just like I converse with, or I get close with, or I don't like to go to a conference or an event and suddenly there's these, randos coming up to me and like having conversation. And I'm like, do I even know you? 'Cause I am one of those people, oddly enough, as unapproachable as sometimes I feel. Someone in the grocery store will come up and just start telling me their life story. And I'm like, I don't know you. Like, what is happening here?
Well, you're safe. That you're safe. They don't know you, so they can tell you the story that they've already told everybody else. So like, this person doesn't know me. I can dump my life story on them, and I'm safe. Yep.
Yeah. I
That's
was
so
like, wait, I
funny.
thought I was unapproachable. Like, why are you approaching me? So yeah. So it can be a little alarming at times.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yep. And I just start asking them questions, and then they feel awkward. Too many questions. They're like, that's too personal.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. Well, this was fun. Instead of our regular accounting style business leadership, which I enjoy those too tremendously. So, excellent. Well, any closing remarks, Christine?
No, I would say, keep listening to podcasts, keep, listening or reading books. The more education that you get or insight, whether it's personal development, mindset development, leadership development, business acumen, some of the other books that are help around business or give you processes, like stay connected to those. That's one of the things that I've noticed is the people that gain the most success and traction with their goals are people that are learning and growing, but then not getting excessive about it, right? Not bringing everything to the team and saying, we're going to do this now, so it's like, learn, but pace yourself and, implement what you do know. And it was, I think it was at an event, Mike McAllowitz shared an insight from an event that he went to, which was, if you know it and you're not doing it, you don't really know it.
Yes. Yes. If you know it and you're not doing it, then you don't really know it. Yeah. And I think the 4 agreements, there's only 4 agreements, right? It's not 27. It's 4 things. And that's why I love Profit First. It's really like 6 accounts, and of course there's some sub accounts if you want to get crazy. Maximizer, my number 5 strength. I love, the extra accounts, but there's only 6 accounts. It's not that crazy. And you're already paying your stuff anyways. So, it's just another system. And guess what today is? April 1st, right? It's profit day. It is it's profit day. It's allocation day. I'm taking my Profit First allocation today. So if you practice Profit First, today's the day, you'll be getting your distribution check. And with my distribution check, I'll tell you, we are painting our house. We are getting our garage doors reframed out, and we are going to be using the balance of that to go on a vacation to Ireland. So that is what I am doing with mine. And then the other half will go into our profit vault for the business. So I'm pretty excited, very strategic with that money. So if you are not practicing Profit First, I would encourage you to do so. And now it's been almost, I think, 8 or 9 years we've been doing this. So it's seamless. My team knows what to do. And it is so much fun to share it with them and watch their skill set with managing it. And I don't have to touch it anymore.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And if you guys have a book and you want us to talk about it, or you want to come on the show as a podcast guest, I'd love to have you on the show. And you can share with the rest of the audience one of your gifts and talents. So reach out to me if you'd like. And we look forward to you joining us on the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.